So I've been asked from a soul perspective, why are so many children taking their own lives? Spiritually speaking, why is this happening? First of all, my heart breaks for every child and family and community that's ever experienced this kind of unimaginable loss. Whether these tragedies are becoming more common or whether they're simply we're more aware of them today, well, one thing is certain, we do need to pay attention, don't we? I always say, look, I don't profess to have all the answers. I'm not a guru. I'm an everyday person who's had experiences with consciousness and altered states of awareness that have informed me about reality or the expansion of it. Maybe it's more than what we currently scientifically understand. I don't profess to have all the answers. I can only speak from what I've personally understood so far, which is that over the years of my vast experience now as a medium and what I've studied about consciousness and psychology and the nervous system, I've become increasingly aware that many children experience the world in an extraordinarily sensitive manner these days. In spirituality terms, these children are often called crystal children. In other words, they're highly evolved souls with a lot of experience that have birthed in right now to help with the evolution or expansion of conscious awareness on the planet. Now, these children often feel everything. They absorb emotions. They are highly empathic. They notice things that others miss. And they seem to have extra sensitive nervous systems that allow their brains to operate in this way, almost like a leveled up version of the human body. And in a world that's becoming faster, louder, and more demanding than ever before, that level of sensitivity can be overwhelming for some children, especially if they display strong empathy and psychic awareness. I believe these children are therefore reflecting something back to us to help us as society. Perhaps they're helping us realise that mental health, emotional well-being, and the nervous system and learning to regulate it aren't optional things. It's not optional knowledge, it's a necessity. In fact, I believe they're fundamental to having a happy, healthy human experience. Perhaps with the incredible technology that's available to us now, they've birthed in to help us move towards wiser wisdom and to develop EQ, emotional intelligence, so that we can navigate these times of greater advancement, technically speaking, with greater wisdom and insight. From my spiritual perspective, based on my own experience, I believe these sensitive souls are inviting humanity to evolve. We need to level up. Look at the world out there. I mean, it's obvious. This is also known in spiritual terms, and it can sound a little bit flowery, but as divine feminine rising. Now, that's nothing to do with gender and everything to do with emotional intelligence again. In other words, feminine qualities such as nurture, empathy, intuition, feeling, compassion, all of that we may contribute to a feminine trait is rising on the planet. It needs to right now, and these children are a part of the wave of that level of intelligence returning to Earth. I want to gently acknowledge the deeper question that many grieving parents ask, which is why they've lost a child. And the truth is, I don't believe any of us can answer that with total certainty whilst we're here. Again, from the spiritual perspective and a level of advancement of the soul, it's important to emphasize that the soul is indestructible at its core. So I don't believe there's one explanation that's going to fit every child and every family, but through thousands of readings over the years, I've come to believe that every soul has its own journey, its own awareness, and its own purpose that exists beyond the common understanding from a human perspective. Some souls experience life very differently to others. Some may come into this world carrying extraordinary sensitivity. Some may touch countless lives, even if they're only here for a short time. And that isn't to say their passing was their choice or that we shouldn't grieve, because every young life is precious, right? That goes without saying. Every loss matters. And every parent has a right to ask why, which is why I do my soul guidance readings, because I try to explore the deeper meaning behind their child or loved one's return to spirit. But I do believe something else too. I believe that every single soul leaves an imprint on humanity, their soul legacy, if you like. Sometimes that legacy changes a family. Sometimes it changes a school or a community, and even wider conversations sometimes, maybe around the mental health of all humanity. So if their lives encourage us to understand the nervous system more deeply, or to realise that we are becoming more overwhelmed, or that we need to be smarter about technology, then this isn't a weakness. It's an amazing reason to be here, because it's helping the collective rise. It's also showing that love never dies. And for those of us who do believe consciousness continues beyond the physical death and love never dies, then there is hope. And in my experience as a medium, those I've connected with in the spirit world are no longer suffering in the way they were here. So it all has deep meaning and purpose. They're whole, they're back in the light, they're loved, they're still themselves, their consciousness continues. That doesn't take away, of course, the grief that's been left behind, because grief is love. With nowhere to place its arms, right? But it does offer hope, knowing, as I personally do, that death is not the end of the story, and that the ripple effect of their lives will go on much longer than their physical short time here. So perhaps the invitation for these beautiful young souls is this: may we build a world with greater intelligence coming from the heart and not so much from head and from fear. May we value not only achievement, intellect and the material gains, but emotional well-being just as much, our true wealth. May success be measured on genuine human connection. May we live in a world where sensitivity isn't seen as a weakness, but is something to be understood, protected and nurtured. So finally, I want to say this. Everything I've shared today comes from my own experiences, as I've said, my understanding. You should always listen to your own heart and your own inner wisdom and decide what feels true for you. You know, in here. But if there is one thing that I think we can all agree on, it's that every child deserves to be seen. Every child deserves to feel safe. Every child deserves to know that their life matters. So perhaps the greatest legacy any of these precious souls can leave us is to inspire us to love one another more deeply whilst we're here. Indeed, I think that's the only question we'll be interested in being able to answer for ourselves when we journey back one day to the world unseen. I'll be interested to know, though, what do you think? Do you have anything to add that could offer hope and comfort to somebody that might have come across this video?